Ist ein bisschen rückwärts da? Ein bisschen rückwärts. Dankeschön. Verehrte Frau Westwood, verehrter Herr Kronthaler, liebe Studentinnen und Studenten, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Erstmal ein ganz großes Dankeschön für diesen super vollen Saal, diese gigantische Frauenquote. Wann führt ihr die Männerquote ein? Ich glaube, es ist an der Zeit. Es ist mir eine große Freude, heute als Schirmherr der heutigen Veranstaltung hier sein zu dürfen. Mit Vivienne Westwood und Andreas Kronthaler hat es der Initiativkreis Mönchengladbach wieder einmal geschafft, hochkarätige Gesprächspartner für die Campusgespräche in die Hochschule zu gewinnen. Es gibt wohl nicht viele Designerinnen, die einen höheren Bekanntheitsgrad genießen als Vivienne Westwood. Wir verbinden mit ihrem Namen den Durchbruch der Punk-Szene, ebenso wie die Etablierung des Korsetts. Was viele nicht wissen, ist, dass Vivienne Westwood nicht den klassischen Weg beschritten hat, den Sie, liebe Studenten, vor sich haben. Ihre berufliche Laufbahn startete sie als Grundschullehrerin in London und dort war es auch, wo sie begann, vermehrt ihre eigene Kleidung zu schneidern. Seit ihrer Schulzeit hatte sich die junge Vivienne bereits für das Modemachen interessiert. Doch die berufliche Zukunft erschien ihr lange Zeit in diesem Metier zu ungewiss und somit siegte nach einem Semester an der Harrow Art School zunächst die Vernunft. Ja, das geht uns allen so mit der Mode, ne? Brotlose Kunst und nur wenige brechen durch. Losgelassen hat sie ihre Passion aber nie und als Mutter zweier Söhne begann sie schließlich, sich wieder an ihre Leidenschaft anzunähern. Zunächst zerlegte sie die Nähte von Kleidungsstücken, um den Schnitt herauszufinden und nähte dann alles originalgetreu wieder zusammen. Diese Angewohnheit, den Dingen auf den Grund zu gehen, bewahrte und perfektionierte sie bis zum heutigen Tage. Schnell wurden ihre Entwürfe professionell und gemeinsam mit ihrem damaligen Lebenspartner Malcolm McLaren kreierte sie bald einen schrillen Trend nach dem anderen. Vivienne Westwoods Mode ist vieles, nur nicht langweilig. 1981 brachte sie die berühmte Piratenkollektion heraus, ein Abschied von der Punk-Szene. Bereits 1989, zur Zeit ihrer Wiener Professur an der Universität für angewandte Kunst, galt sie als eine der 5 wichtigsten Designerinnen der Welt. Dort traf sie den Tiroler Andreas Kronthaler. Seither kreiert er mit ihr gemeinsam die Runway-Looks der Weltmarke und leitet mit der Avantgarde-Ikone die Geschicke des Unternehmens. Vivienne Westwood nutzt ihre Mode gerne auch für politische Zwecke, setzt sich für die Schließung von Guantanamo Bay ein und protestierte unter anderem im März 2007 mit Annie Lennox und Bianca Jagger gegen eine Neuanschaffung von Atom-U-Booten. Nach einem Gespräch mit der Tierrechtsorganisation PETA entschloss sich Westwood im Oktober 2007, keine Tierfelle mehr für ihre Kostüme und Accessoires zu verwenden. Ja, wenn Sie mich noch fragen, was wir besonders beneiden an Vivienne Westwood, an einem solchen Star der Mode, dann ist es diese wunderbare Unangepasstheit. Wir alle sind doch, wir Modemacher meine ich mal, Sklaven und Opportunisten des Kommerzes und Sie, Vivienne Westwood, haben sich davon total abgekoppelt und das ist etwas, was ich wahnsinnig beneide als Sklave des Kommerzes. In diesem Sinne, liebe Gäste, freuen Sie sich nun gemeinsam mit mir auf ein spannendes Gespräch unter der Leitung von Dunja Hayali, und scheuen Sie nicht, Ihre Fragen an unsere Gäste zu stellen. Dankeschön.
Hello, yeah. Yes, I'm here today as an activist. I'm also a fashion designer. I'm very happy how being a fashion designer and having a certain amount of credibility gives me the chance to open my mouth and try and communicate certain things. And what I'm trying to do all the time is to build the public debate against the financial system that we have, which is ruining us and which is causing climate change. Tonight I'm going to give a speech, and the speech will be, the frame of the speech is what is in that leaflet that you have all got. So you'll be able to have a look at that. And so a couple of things from the speech that I intend to give. I'll tell you what I think are the most important things. The first most important thing is to understand how this financial system works. Now then, you have heard it. There are many articles explaining this. What I have tried to do is to absolutely reduce it to its common denominator, so that you will understand from it everything, because you can work out everything that's wrong if you understand what I'm about to say now. And that is that who are our rulers? Who rules the world? They are the central banks. Apparently there are 147 of them. And these banks are the only banks that are allowed to print money. They print money, but they print money in an emergency, because their vast wealth comes from interest. They lend money, that creates debt. This is why the world is getting many, many poor people and fewer rich people. It's polarizing in this way because of this system. And so the point about the interest is that the banks do not want the principal returned. They do not want people to ever pay off the debt. In this way, they actually, because they own the debt, they own, could be a country. I'll give you an example. I'll give you the example first, which is, you have all heard of a country in Africa, say, which is really poor, and they have been persuaded, or forced, you might say, to borrow money. And they sell off all their assets just to pay the interest. And the country gets poorer and poorer. You know, you've heard of people who need water having to produce lettuces that they then send off to other countries. I mean, this is what we're talking about. Their water's poisoned, all this kind of thing. Anyway, so, and so they do not want the principal back. And what this does, it means there is so much money for investment in the world that the investors are being persuaded to invest in things that are really, really bad for the world. Like, for example, the system is called capitalism, but the real name should be monopoly capitalism. Because it's not just me being a little capitalist, I need capital for my company. It's really big organisations where big fish eat little fish, make all the poor people in the middle poorer and poorer, and end up with only poor and a few rich. By the way, Karl Marx identified this problem in capitalism. And so if, for example, everybody gets poorer and poorer, capitalism kills itself because there's no market left. Nobody can buy anything. They're all dying. Sorry. And so, so that is the system that we live under. And if you understand that, you understand why the planet's being wrecked and why we have to stop it. So that's the first point. And the second thing I want to say is, I'm an activist, and I need to try to get through to people. And even though I get really great responses from people, because they know that what I'm saying is what they think anyway. And nevertheless, the problem is so urgent that we really just need to build the public debate. And so I have come up with the idea that we should, I've got my new campaign is, by the way, in your leaflet there's a website, and that's my website, it's called Climate Revolution. I want you to keep in touch with us on that site. And the latest campaign of Climate Revolution is going to be Politicians Are Criminals. Now then, like I said, it's something you all know. And so, there are exceptions. We need politicians. We need them to change. We need politicians, not criminals. And so, so why are they criminals? Because every one of their policies is a crime against humanity, because it brings us nearer and nearer to mass extinction of the human race from climate change. But, wait a minute, sorry. Anyway, I'm trying to connect so many things, sorry. Anyway, but if we can and why else? Yeah. What I wanted to say is the real measure, if you want to judge who's a politician and who's a criminal, is by the kind of laws that they do want to pass. And the worst thing, something that's happening right now, and which gave me the idea that we really have to start calling them criminals, and then maybe it'll get through to more and more people, is this idea of something called TTIP. Transatlantic something trade and industry partnership. That's what I think it's called. That's what it means. And it's something that America is forging with Canada and Mexico at the moment. The United States are forging that with those two countries. And they want to forge it with Europe as well. Embedded in this partnership is a law. And this law allows corporations to have the same status as a country. And an example of what happens, I'll just give you one example, is that in El Salvador, the water has been poisoned by a very big Canadian mining company. And so the government has said no more mining permits, you can't come in anymore. And therefore, the Canadian mining company is suing them for millions and millions of dollars, more than they can afford. And this is what is happening. And if this happens everywhere, it will mean that anybody who protests is stopping a corporation from earning its livelihood, wrecking the planet. This is what it means. It means you won't have any freedom left, because you can be intimidated into thinking that somebody's going to just take away your something you can't afford. I mean, it is the most terrible thing. And this is, I never thought that politicians would show their hand so clearly, reveal what they're doing. We are pro-profit, we are anti-people. This is why I say what I say. Right, so, and I would like to invite the public to say that where the exceptions are, because, and that is where you draw the line. If they're pro-TTIP, then they're a criminal. And they have to start changing. We need politicians, we don't need criminals. And what I would like to say is when I go away again, I'd like to have some access. We've got, as I said, the Climate Revolution site. I would like to be able to tap into all the people here so that they know what we're doing. If there's a demonstration, maybe they would like to go on the demonstration. I want to do that. For example, there is a very fantastic organisation run by a man called Bill McKibben, who's amazing. He's been to every country in the world, and he's got enclaves of protest in every country. He didn't go to North Korea, that's the only one he never went to. He got people from down, was Washington, wasn't it, where they got those 30,000 people or something like that. It could have been even 300, I don't know, it was a lot, no, 30 I think, to stop, to put on hold the pipeline from the tar sands. But what he's doing, because people don't demonstrate as much as they used to, we're having simultaneous demonstrations about certain great big issues like that. So it would be great if we can sort of keep in touch and somebody can just, you know, say all these people who want to sign up to this access to us, you know, it would be good. Thank you.
So first of all, Vivienne Westwood and Andreas Kronthaler, it's really a great pleasure to have you here. I think it's not just my opinion, I think everyone who is right here in the audience would like to say that. And to be honest, I would love to talk with you about the G7 because I'm a political journalist, but this would take ages and hours, so we might continue after this part. Now we would like to talk with you a little bit about fashion and your life. And first of all, I've read your book. It's fantastic. I don't know with whom I'm in love more, with you or with you, after reading the book. And I learned something about you as a teacher. You were teaching in Vienna as well, where you both met, and then you were teaching also in Berlin. What is so special about teaching?
Well, at the time I definitely needed the money. But I was a school teacher. I would, if I did have the time, I would love to have more contact with young people. And because I do believe that education, people are being taught wrongly. I'm a heretic, and I would not be teaching in the way that people teach today. I think that a teacher is someone who, let me just put it another way. People need to follow their deep interest. In the end, you teach yourself. A teacher is someone who points the nose of a child and says, that's where you need to go. They inspire them with ideas that they know that the child, the young person, will be interested in. I'm talking about culture. You're not taught to do that today. You've got to tick boxes, you've got to hurry up, you've got to know this and that. I mean, I have people coming to me who are supposed to be doing my computer image, telling people what we do through the internet. And they're so bad at doing their job because they don't have any culture. They don't have any ideas. They've been taught how to manipulate things, but they don't have any ideas, they don't understand anything. How can they promote who I am when they've got no clue they've never heard of Mozart or anything, they don't know anything. And I also want to say that as a student, if you don't have culture, then you don't have ideas. You have a very superficial thing. You can do something. Everybody, you know, if you're 20 years old, you've had experience of life, you know something, you've got some ideas, you've got certain things that you're even passionate about, and you can start. But how do you continue? It's like you have to go shopping to get some food in the fridge, you know, to cook the next meal. Where does it come from? You've got to do that. You've got to go to art galleries, you've got to read. When I was teaching, I always said, you know, I said to the students, I won't teach people who don't read. So the first thing we did is they all read a book and we discussed it. I think the first book I gave them was probably 1984, and then Brave New World. If you haven't read that, you've got no roots. You don't know anything about the genius of the human race. You just live in this world. You have to know the past to know the world we live in. I feel it's my duty to understand the world I live in, and you have to do it by understanding the past. And I'm afraid the 20th century misinformed everyone, and we don't have any art because of it. They said everything starts from here. You know, forget the past. How can you break the tradition? First of all, you break the technique. And then, you know, I mean, it's like telling a scientist to smash his laboratory. Anyway, that's it.
So, Andreas, I guess she was a very good teacher, but was it so smart to fall in love with your teacher?
She was a very good teacher, yes. I think it's extremely important, teachers. They have a great responsibility, and I think people don't speak enough about it. A teacher is there to filter and explain things. Nowadays, in this, you know, everybody's referring to the social media and this, the computer and all this very fast knowledge, but it's not explained to you in a proper way, and I think a teacher is there to do that, and the teacher is there to give you an insight, and you, like Vivienne says, he points you towards something because he knows you, you know. There is there is something personal there, and you need that. He might be the one who, you know, builds up this passion in you or releases this passion, whatever it is. Teachers are extremely important, and I think we are here in a school, and teachers are in school, so we are in the right place. I hope there are some teachers in the room and listening to me.
Sorry, can I add something, which is about the green economy? The green economy isn't just green jobs, it's different values, and it's a different money system. And in a green economy, you would have a lot more teachers and less bankers and less money paid to football players, I guess. But yeah, anyway.
But in the case of when I met Vivienne in Vienna, whatever, how long ago, she was somebody immediately who spoke what I've always thought. I don't know, I mean, everybody experienced that in their life, that suddenly you're confronted with something and it just speaks about the deep inner. And I just connected immediately, and I thought that's it.
You can speak German if you want.
Because she, I suppose she has heard it before. I don't know. She must be bored by it. But anyway, it's just what was it? You've put me off now.
You were talking about the first moment. That is also very cute in the book.
You know, I thought I'm on the right. I'm on the right road, on the right way. I mean, as soon as I met her, I thought that's it. I've understood something. Or that's it. I'm okay here. She'll sort me out.
Very special way of connection, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there very long, you know. It's only a year I went to this school. It was the Academy of Applied Arts. And it was a good school. It was in Vienna. I lived there, Vienna.
Very conservative, by the way.
Yes, but very conservative. But you know, if there is an extreme, there's always another extreme. So it was a good place, and I suppose it still is. I went to London then. She invited me to work on a collection, and I stayed. I spent the summer in London, and I never went back really. I thought, you know, I like it here and something to do, and it was the real thing which excited me as well. It was the reality really of it all, of fashion, and I was so excited. And I didn't really know very much about Vivienne when I met her. I have heard of her before, but once I entered her world, it was mesmerizing, absolutely mesmerizing.
And he convinced you with a cow, right? With the cow. He created the cow.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is not the question, so we continue. The love story is...
Nothing wrong with a cow.
No. It's the most beautiful animal, you told her.
It's the eyes, you know, the eyes. There is a saying, you know, a cow-eyed woman. The Greeks, this was a beauty, a sign of great beauty. Pallas Athene apparently was cow-eyed. You know, you just look into these eyes and you can't get off it.
We don't
the
want to
cow
go into
has
details.
that.
So Vivienne, these days people try all sorts of ways to grab attention without being truly original. I hope you understand what I try to say. Well, what are your thoughts about that? They are just copying, or they're just in a rush, they can't listen to their own thoughts or to their surrounding. That's my impression.
Well, I think the opposite. I think they're trying to be original and something different. We've all seen it 17 times already. And so they're never original. If you're trying to be original, you have to follow your interest. That's how you become original. Yeah.
But I think there is nothing wrong with copying.
Oh, no, absolutely. No.
Especially when you try to copy extremely brilliant things or complicated things or high-level things. You learn a hell of a lot of it. I think, you know, I learned a lot of going into museums, into archives. I learned a lot in taking clothes apart and trying to find out how they were made and their cut and the materials. And, you know, it's never ending. It's endless. And I think it's the best thing, really, because you can rely on that. You build up a knowledge. It's like you become a computer. You become something which only you have got, because it's you who has to look. And you know, I always say this. You know, it's good to think of other people, but when you are somebody who designs something or who makes something, I think you should please yourself first and overall. I think it's only, you have to be truthful, because eventually that will come through, and if you are not, it'll show up at one point. So
this is how culture progressed. Always. People copied. Rubens, who was a diplomat as well as a painter, at the age of 50, he was in Spain copying from the museum galleries, and he was copying Titian, you know, right up until his 50s. The copies are never quite the same as Titian. You can tell the difference. In fact, if you try to copy, this is the only way to learn everything. If you want to draw, try to draw something from another master's drawing. Try to do that. It's so hard. It's harder than drawing from life. Anyway, and the thing is that when you copy, you're trying to copy it like the original. That is so hard, because a design or a painting is hundreds and hundreds of small decisions, and you're having to compare those decisions with the decisions that have gone on before to get to the prototype. And the thing is that you will probably at some point even not want, you can't copy, you'll do your best. At some point you will want perhaps not quite to copy, because you are who you are, and you perhaps prefer it slightly different. What I'm talking about is that every work of art is a vision of the world in which you live. And you lived at a different part than your mother. In 10 years' time, you'll be different than you are now. Your vision of the world will be different. And it will influence what you do, and it will be original if it's great. If it's not very good, it won't be very good, and that's that. But that's how it will become original. It will be part of the tradition. If it's part of the tradition, it's original, because otherwise it wouldn't fit in. There's an amazing essay by T.S. Eliot called Tradition and the Individual Talent. It's one of the most deep insights about culture that I've ever heard. Yeah, anyway.
I have one more question about sustainability, because this is a huge topic, not just in fashion, in every case, I would say. So do you think does it still make sense to produce 2, 3 or 4 collections per year when you think about sustainability?
Not at all.
Not at all. I think the most sustainable way of doing something is making something which lasts. Over the years, because it's a problem, we face for a long time now, for many, many years, and I always questioned myself, what can I do, me as a designer? Of course, you can find fabrics which are, properly sourced, and you can make things in a certain way. But what I really think, you use leathers, naturally dyed, colors, yarns. There are so many things nowadays. It's become quite an industry in itself, really, this sustainability. But what I think really makes a difference is making things which last. I think that's the most sustainable thing to do, because you're not making things which you throw away. It's the great problem we have, as far as I know, is that this throwaway, isn't it called the throwaway society? It's awful. I think it's ridiculous, it's frightening. And sometimes you even enter into things, and me, I'm not the only one. I'm sure there are great judges in this room, but I've looked at so many things. I'm a quite visual person. I've traveled more or less, or half the world. I've seen things. I know things from history. Sometimes I know there are things which are not going to last, not even a generation. They're just going to throw them out again, pull the house down, or whatever it is. If you can, Germany is quite, you know that, you live off this more or less. I think it's the secret maybe of Germany, is making things of great and high quality, and therefore things do last, If you combine that with style and taste, I think you just are a winner. You're going to be happy and content.
I will need to add to that as well.
Sorry.
No, we are trying to make our company, we're trying to reduce it on the basis of quality rather than quantity. Because if you expand too much, you can't control things. And I have always run my business on I have to like it. Some of the things we don't know, they come and go, I never even see them. So we're trying to do that. And it's hard, but we really are trying to do that by way of the best thing we can do for sustainability. I want to refer particularly to what Andreas said about making it last as well, because we've got a maxim which we're intending to etch on our glass windows, and we're going to make a rubber stamp, and every time anybody buys anything, we stamp the carrier bag with this stamp, and it says, buy less, choose well, make it last. And I think the choose well part, I think people don't choose. You're overwhelmed with so much rubbish. You just take it or leave it. Take this, don't like it, buy something else tomorrow. It's really, really terrible. And for example, if divorce was not allowed, I mean, you might not choose that particular man for your husband. You might wait a bit. Okay.
Would you like to add something, or?
There's nothing I need to add. No.
All right, so we have 50 minutes to go. This is now your time and your part to ask some questions. I think we have a mic. Yeah? Where is it? Just one? Two. So raise your arms and keep your questions quite short, because I guess there will be a lot. So let's start over here. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and for this very interesting introduction. And I think it's really time to change the world, and also fashion has to change. And I would like to know a little bit more about how you implement the issue of sustainability in your own collections. Do you look for ecological materials? Do you look for fair production? Are these issues that you are concerned with your own fashion you make?
Do we look for sustainable fabrics and what?
Production.
Materials and production.
Materials and production.
Oh, you mean like how you wash denim and all that kind of thing?
Which materials are you using?
Yeah, but I think she's talking about the processes as well that pollute.
Yeah, I mean, like fair production. Fair production, you know, like the wages, and where do you have your clothes sewn, for example?
Yes.
Right. That's
what kind of wages are being paid?
Okay. Do you want to answer it?
I mean, I can answer it partly, but we are probably more high-end fashion, so our clothes are mostly made in Europe. I think 99% are made in Europe, in Italy particularly, and their working conditions are very, very good. They are the best, I think. They're the best to make fashion, as we know. And they have got a great pride in what they do and what they can do. And they look after that, as you all know here, made in Italy. It's they have got a hand nobody else has. Probably the French a bit, but so we care about that. It is comes from there. About fabrics, like yes, if there is something which I must say, like I said before, it's the last, to make something last, that makes to me more sense, you know, to make a pair. You know, if you choose leather, I know people who don't use leather because it's very, very bad leather for the environment. You know, it's something, it's a living organism. You have to keep it fixed, and to do that and to color it and stuff, you use extreme poisons, and it's ever so bad for the environment. But I still can't live without leather, or I have to design shoes which are made in leather. I just try to make them of very high quality and of something you will like for a long time, which is not just a seasonal thing, you know. You buy a shoe and then next year you think, oh my God, what have I bought here? It's you know, such a silly pair of shoes or something, and you just it ends up in a wardrobe, or you probably have never even worn it. I hope that answered a little bit your question.
I'll add to it as well. What Andreas is talking about is that our production is labour intensive, and it needs skill, and it's rewarding work. People enjoy doing it. And I think that's very important anyway. It's not, you know, on a production line like Charlie Chaplin, or going from A to B as quick as possible. in some sweatshop. I think it's good the way that our clothes are made. Because people need clothes. And the other thing is about fabrics. We don't usually... Stella McCartney, we are in touch with Stella, and she's going to give us a few tips as to what she has been doing. But up till now, all we've managed to do about sustainable cotton, for example, is that because we have quantity, because we make quite a lot of T-shirts, we've managed to do that, and we get our cotton from Peru, and it's all sustainable, and it's vegetable dyed, and it's really good. And that we're able to do that. We can't do it, you know, we're on a treadmill. We're really having to go design a collection before we finish the last one. I don't go to the fabric people and say, I love this fabric, but I'm afraid I've got to get it ready in 2 weeks, but you've got to give me a certificate as to exactly where it all comes from. And it's really, really difficult to know where your options are as well. I mean, Stella, she said that leather, for example, is about 30 times worse than plastic. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not, you know, I mean, you really don't know these things. You have to try and find out. And so it depends very much on the fabric supplier. If they say something is biological, we're very interested in it. We want to pay more money for it. We put a little ticket on it and let people know that that's what we're doing. And that's what we would like to do. And by the way, the cotton, the shop Zara, the man that produces that, I don't know his name, but anyway, he does millions and millions of cotton garments. I'll just talk about cotton for the moment. And he can only manage to do 6% of them in environmental friendly cotton because there actually isn't the supply. It can only get so much with all that quantity. We can manage because we don't have that great big thing. But anyway, that's what we're trying to do, and there is definitely a direction of people wanting to do that, and the public wanting them to do that. And there's something happened about evening dresses or something with some special silk or something that is now totally bio-friendly. I can't remember what it is, but we want to know about it, don't we? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Next question.
I want to add that things are sold at less than cost. Everything in the world is sold at less than cost, especially if you take into account the damage that it does to the planet. But there are things that the American fracking industry, all that fracked gas and oil is being sold at less than cost. People are going bankrupt through it. It's supposed to be a success because it released all this money into the system. But in the end, that money will all go back into the interest of the banks. I mean, this is what happens. But anyway, there's lots of examples. Nearly everything is sold at less than cost. Things will have to cost more in the future.
I didn't know your thoughts till today, and I really fell in love with your thoughts. And what can I do that friends and family hear my thoughts? Because I just think like you, and nobody else thinks like this. They laugh about me when I say things about capitalism and some other ways. Do you?
How
about capitalism?
Your friends and family.
I don't know. It's a terrible problem. Sometimes I feel completely hopeless about convincing people. I mean, even here now, I do think that something is going to happen. I think certain small things will happen. I'm not the only person trying to do something. You know, you have to remember that. Sometimes you think the situation is so urgent, what can we do? You know, imagine all these people that are going to die, the climate refugees that are already, you know, had to leave their homes, more than the war refugees, about 3 times more than war refugees or climate refugees who can no longer live where they were born. Anyway, and so I don't know. I think you have to just keep on trying, find examples, and I don't know, some people won't change, and talk to the people who agree with you as well. Just build the whole debate. And in your personal life, every time you save a plastic bag or do something, it's terribly important, because not only for what it is, but for you and who you are and what you care about. It's really, really important, and you're not the only person. And I don't know, get some help from your friends. Get your friend to come and talk to your dad with you. I don't know, something like that. You know, always link with people.
Good afternoon. I am a teacher, and as a teacher, my primary interest would be to learn. So for me, teaching has a lot to do with passion and inspiration, in a way like citing the most lovely poem you've ever heard. And what I would like to know is, what was the most passionate thing that ever happened to you, that ever occurred to you in your position as a teaching person and personality?
Do you know, I don't know. I can remember when I was teaching little children, about 7, and I remember one lady coming to me and said, and she said, "My little, I'm so glad to meet you. You're the first person that my little boy, everybody's always told me he was a pain in the arse, and you don't think so, and you think he's good and he's very happy with you." Anyway, that was one thing. I think I can only speak for myself, things that have happened to me. I think that if I had to say the best moment of my life, I have had 2 children, and that was really wonderful. But was in Japan, listening at the No Theatre. I think that was the deepest, most wonderful cultural experience I've ever had. It is something else. It is so primitive, so universal, so completely takes you meditating into another world. It is just something so amazing, and it is something preserved from the past. That's one thing. I'll try and think of something else where you feel I've fired somebody up. I don't know. I don't know what it would have been. Do you, Andreas? Can you think of anything? When you that inspired you even? I don't really know.
For me, maybe a very important, I once went to an exhibition, I think that changed absolutely my life, which was in Venice. I think it might have been 1989. It was Titian, and it was maybe his 500 year. It was a big exhibition. All of his work was there. It was in the Dogenpalast, and it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I want to say that I think teachers are wonderful, and I always support teachers. And there's a horrible climate where teachers are being judged as to their efficiency or not according to league tables and all this terrible rubbish, and that they're having to spend their time ticking boxes, and that their curriculum is being limited. You know, you can't have this or you can't have that. I think that if you had more teachers, teachers would have more freedom to have an individual relationship with the children. And I think that is absolutely crucial. And I would not believe any government who doesn't believe that you need more teachers. And I, for example, remember Tony Blair, who is now a pariah because he took us into a war that nobody wanted. And I think this is one of the reasons probably why people don't demonstrate so much anymore, because politicians are so complacent, so confident with all their spin doctors, and that they do what they want and ignore public opinion. And I remember Tony Blair saying, education, education, education. The more you learn, the more you earn. Now then, that is the voice of a Philistine. It is just appalling. Anyway, yeah.
Hi.
Where are you? Can you, because
Over
we
here.
can't, all right,
Hi.
thank you.
So I'm wondering if...
Can you please stand up? That makes it so much more easier for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi. What do you think, when was your power and your influence on society more? In the past, when you was teaching small, free-minded children, or now being heard by the whole world? You know what I mean? Just being heard of a little group of children you are leading into the right direction, or now being heard by the whole society?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they're very different. It's lovely being with children. I was worried as a teacher. I was worried because, I'll tell you why I was worried, because I thought the whole system was so bad, and I knew that I was kind of being a bit subversive and a rebel to the way I taught the kids, and I was a bit worried about that all the time, but I liked being with them. I don't know, but thank you for the question, because it's very, very important that people do try to get through and build this public debate, and so I'm very glad for this opportunity. And the thing is, you can recognise the way I'm talking now that I'm still a teacher. It's, you know, that's who I am. I'm always telling people, you know, how to behave. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, can't help. The wonderful thing about teaching very young children is that they just love to be at school. They really, really enjoy it. At a certain age, they stop enjoying it, and they start to be naughty, and that's because there aren't enough teachers, and they're getting their sums wrong, and they don't like it. You don't have the time for them, you know.
I have a little story here, actually, that I learned to be a goldsmith, a jeweler, and I had a very, very important teacher then. And when I made my final work, mein Gesellenarbeit, I had 1 week time to do it, and I designed this brooch, and we had to design it all and do sketches first, and then we had to sit down and start making it. It was in silver, copper, and gold, and I remember it very well. And like I said, you had 1 week. You had to manage your time as well for this whole project. That was, you know, as you can imagine, this was the idea of it all. But at one point, I don't know, was it the second or the third day, I got myself in such a muddle. I was working there, you know, at the goldsmith bank, and doing this thing, and the sweat ran down, and I didn't like what I was doing, and it went all wrong. And of course, the teacher, you know, he did know me over the years and came to me, and I and it was a brooch with a big needle, and I turned around and I nearly ran this needle into his stomach. He had a bit of a dummy, actually, I remember him very well. I said, oh my God, you know, Andreas, hold on, let's go outside, let's smoke a cigarette. And you know, you used to smoke in those days a lot still. And he said, you know, just get yourself together and start again. You know, there's still 2 days left. If you plan it very well, you can get through it. And it really cleared my head. And, you know, I went into the atelier and just started right from the beginning again. And I made a work which I was very, very happy with it. And it was quite excellent. So that's a teacher telling you what to do, guiding you through something which is difficult, but, you know...
he believed in you.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And he did know me.
I want to say one other thing about teachers, which is why I like teachers. When I was a teacher, teachers, all they ever did was talk about the children. They just loved their pupils. That's what teachers are like, yeah.
What did you learn from each other beside that you shouldn't say fuck off anymore?
You know, there's another thing. You're all, I don't know, it's textile we are here, no? Your speciality is textiles. So it's not particularly being a designer. You are somebody who works very much in the background. You know, without textiles there wouldn't be no fashion, that's for sure. In any case, this shows you what a big team we are. We are all in the fashion world. You know, it's not the designer who makes the textiles or sews the garments. You know, it's a huge machinery behind it. But now I lost my thought.
What did you? I asked. What did you learn from?
Yes. That it's one thing is to be on your own, and another thing is to be with somebody. And I just think life is so much more easier if you can share it with somebody, and you automatically learn from each other. I think alone I would be absolutely unable to do anything. And I think behind anybody and everybody is another half, sometimes more discreet, sometimes more dominant, but just try to find that other half, I don't know, if you haven't got it yet.
But Vivienne, you enjoy sometimes to be on your own, right?
Yes, I wanted to say, because I know people who, you know, I know one person in particular, and she's coming up to 40, and like she's got to get married because
she's 45.
You know, I mean, this kind of thing, and it's not true that you have to have somebody, and if you have that attitude, things won't work out. You'll expect things from the other person, and you should never expect anything from anybody. I'm very proud. I would never expect anybody to do something for me they didn't want to do. And so I love being on my own. And I think that human beings, we are social people. We have the quality to love each other, to engage with each other. And I think it's probably more difficult to live with somebody than to live on your own. But I think that people, my friend Pamela Anderson, she's been married a few times, and you know, and her son's really a bit unhappy, just thinks, you know, another failure of marriage or something. Nobody loves my mother, and she just should keep on trying, you know, that's it.
Same but different, I would say, about you two.
I have had a wonderfully rewarding experience living with Andreas, and the joke is that I like living with him as much as living on my own. Anyway, but and I'm always attracted by mental stimulation. And Andreas, he's already said he's very visual. I'm literary. He gets things by direct experience, it seems to me. I said that to somebody this morning, by the way, but if you can get him to tell you what his experience is, it is just something so original in the most wonderful expressed language. He hardly ever speaks about anything important, but when he does, it's so incredible. Nobody else would be able to tell me what he tells me. Nobody, because it's so original, and it's been wonderful when he does do that. I learned a lot. Yeah.
I'm a good housefrau too, by the way.
That's really true. No, cleaning is a therapy for him. Yeah. I never used my washing machine or my Hoover yet.
Hoover can be like meditation, really.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Me too. But just hoovering.
Clears
all
my
the rest,
head.
yeah.
It clears my head.
Do you have some more questions?
Hi.
Where is hi?
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to know where you get your inspiration for your collections. Do you have special themes or just go out?
No, I'll answer that because I can be quite quick, because I did already answer it as well this morning, which is that it's absolutely great if you have a theme, because then everything kind of, like comes together. It's really, really good. You usually start without one, and in which case you can just impose a theme on the very end, 2 weeks before you just style the collection and give it a name and write a little press release to tell the journalists what they can say about this collection. And you need to sort of do that. But the thing is that you discover the theme as you work usually. You start with the fabrics for the reason that we're always in the process of completing one collection and designing the next one at the same time. And so we look at fabrics and that gives us ideas. At the same time, we also have toiles that we're starting to work on. We work from, if I'm stuck, I often invent a new cutting principle and just start to play around with that and then give it to somebody. You have to give work to the people who are working with you. So we have to do that. And then sometimes those things come together. I can't think of a better example than the one I gave to the journalists this morning. And I was walking past a stand where you put your, the pattern cutter makes her sample and puts it on the stand instead of a body. Anyway, you must know what that is, yeah. And I was walking past and there was this completed toile on the stand, and it didn't have any trousers, it just stopped, it was a jacket. And the volume of it reminded me of a hero in ballet, a principal prince in ballet, or in a story or a play,
yeah, yes.
Shakespeare, whatever. It had that sort of volume, and because it had no bottom to it at the time, I imagined it in tights. It's just the volume was just that, and I said that reminds me of a principal boy in a pantomime, and we called that collection Prince Charming, and that was the kind of look, tights worn over underwear and jackets, and that was just one part of it. But that's how we built it up, and we made things that looked a bit like Grimm's fairy tales, where they're all in the forest or something. This kind of thing, all sort of, that's how the thing got working anyway. And I could mention other themes, but that was one of them anyway. Mm-hmm. And you have to have culture at the back of it. I've already said, otherwise it's just superficial. How do you keep on going? It becomes because you've got a kind of overview, to a certain extent, of the world we live in, the genius of the human race, what they can do. I'd like to give you a definition of culture just quickly. It won't take a minute. It's something that I read in a book by Matthew Arnold, who was writing in about 1900, but he wrote this a bit before. And it is that culture is the pursuit of our perfection. I just have to explain what that means. I like to believe, that as a species, we are evolving. We came from bacteria. We are evolving into something even more human, something even more divine, because once you fulfill your potential as a species to become who you are reaching a kind of concept of God. I'm not a religious person, but I love the concept of God and the idea of perfectibility. And so start again then. So culture is the pursuit of our perfection by means of getting to know the best that has ever been thought or said in the world. And by this knowledge, and through this knowledge, casting a stream of fresh and free thought upon all our stock, notions and habits. I think that's it, yeah. So we see the world, we criticize the world. We see it from the visions of the past, and we compare those to the visions of the future. Yeah, thank you. You have to get from here to there. And it would be the guide that we need to get out of the trap we're in is what's good for the planet is good for the economy. What's good for the economy and what's good for the planet is also good for people. It would be an economy run for everybody. And in that new world, we would have to have a hierarchy of values. We don't have a hierarchy of values today. We have a hierarchy of privilege, and what people don't like about the world we live in is that, there's a word called elite. What they mean by the elite is the rich. I mean, elite is a terrible misuse of the word because it means somebody who deserves respect. It comes from the word to elect, somebody that is worthy, like a tribal leader, somebody who is wise. It's nothing to do with money and privilege of that kind today. And so the ideal society would have a hierarchy of values. What happened, I already mentioned, in the 20th century, is the idea that everybody's equal. And what had happened is that art, the emphasis completely shifted. At one time, there was supposed to be value in the object itself. And that value, in the end, depended upon the amateur, the true art lover, who was a good judge of things because they compared things with each other all their life. I'm going to give you an example of how you can compare things in a second. But and so things did have a value. Time usually proved the value. And then it shifted that, no, it's not. The value is the person looking at it. That's when you got abstract art. There's no point in abstract art. There's nothing to do with culture. Culture is a communion of ideas. There's no communion between an abstract painting and a person looking at it. You can meditate on it. You can meditate on red. you know, but everybody's going to meditate on it differently, you know, and so suddenly we all can become appreciators of art. We're all equal. If when there are no judges, there's no art. And this is why we don't have culture. So if we did have culture, we would have different values, we would not be in the mess we're in. And, for example, we would pay people who clean a lot more money than we do now. All kinds of things. We would have different values. And it's somebody who can help us get there is the politician. I was going to say the way you discriminate yourself. I used to say when I was teaching in Berlin, I told you that I told them to read, but also I sent them to the art gallery. It's wonderful, the Gemälde Gallery in Berlin. I know it very well. I used to always spend a day there every time I went to Berlin. Anyway, and I said to them, when you go from one room to another, think if the fire bell went, which picture would you save? You keep going, and keep going. You don't have to just go. And then 6 months later, if you've been going to that gallery, and I ask you that and you ask yourself that question again, you wouldn't choose that picture. You are cultivating your taste. You'd say to yourself, God, did I really think those tears going down that girl's face were truthful and not just total sentimental rubbish? You know, this here, this little dog or something, or this rose, that's real. You would start to discriminate. Anyway, yeah.
I have to say it was a very interesting question, like someone over there did that already before and asked that already. I have also problems with this double standards. We are always talking about governments and politicians and we are blaming them, but I think we should also start to blame ourselves, because I know so many people, they're just talking but they don't take action, so they are blaming everyone for kids' labor, for example, or how we treat animals, but the next day they're going out and buying meat for €1, or they're buying a t-shirt for 50 cents or something. So I always ask myself, how can we change our double standards, you know? Not just talking and crying when we see, like, we treat animals terribly.
Don't eat meat once.
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
That makes such a difference, you know, apparently.
But what to do nevertheless? I mean, let's talk about
fabrics. And that's not difficult, I think. I mean, that's a little start, but, you know, if the whole world wouldn't eat for 1 day a week, no meat, apparently the meat and gas thing would be so much reduced, apparently. I mean, you can start, but like Vivienne said, you know, not throwing a plastic bag away, or do you really need this bottle of water in plastic, you know? It's all, I think it all gone out of hand, you know. I'm not so old, but you are all much younger, but it was once not the case that everywhere was this plastic, you know. You really thought twice, and if you bought a bottle of water, it was in glass, and you worshipped this special water coming from God knows where. But it's also dangerous, really dangerous. You have to question what you do. In the smallest daily actions you fulfill or do, I don't know. Did that make sense?
It makes sense, but you know, people, I mean, they don't like buying plastic, or they don't like buying t-shirts which were made by hands of kids.
But they are.
But the next day they are buying it.
Yeah.
So that is so weird, isn't it?
You have to keep, you know, what's the thing? We are born to sin. I don't know. Very difficult. You have to keep
so
hitting
difficult.
yourself. It is difficult.
It's really difficult. I mean, you know, when I was
to work on
young, women, most of them stayed at home, and nowadays they have to work. Because people are getting poorer and poorer, and for this whole thing we're talking about, and life is so difficult for people. And, you know, we know about people in America who have got all these credit cards, probably in England too, they're going to food banks and everything, and they've got their family sitting in the car, and they've got no money, and they end up buying gizzards of things, which are bits of chicken's necks. I think that's what they end up buying, and things like that. And she managed to get, of about 30 credit cards, one that worked, to get these gizzards for her kids. I mean, and she's just worked a whole full day's work. I mean, it's incredibly difficult. And so all I can say is that as individuals, each of us has to really, perhaps not has to, but it would be a good idea to really try and try to think about what Dunja's saying. You're right, and we don't have time to think about it even. You know, we're thirsty and we didn't remember to bring, you know, a plastic bottle we had yesterday filled with water from the tap, which is fine. I always drink water from the tap in the hotel. I never open the bottle. I always drink from the tap. But anyway, yeah, I tell you what it is, you have to plan a bit more. That's what you have to do. When you go to work or to school, you have to try and think, what am I going to eat at lunchtime? And take something with you. I've got a grater in my office, and at lunchtime I might, you know, I'll grate some carrots. I always take what I'm going to eat in the middle of the day. And raw food is the best thing. You're not supposed to give diet advice to people, but I think that we have such an incredible choice of food that anybody can get all the nutrients they need from just vegetables. It is really true. The more you do that, the more healthy you will become. I tell you, the best tip is don't have any breakfast at all. Because, you know, I started not to have breakfast because I didn't have any willpower and I wanted to lose weight. I used to be bigger before I started to eat just vegetables. And so anyway, and that's why I started not, and that's, if you don't have a breakfast, it gives your body a chance to get rid of some of the shit that's in it without bombarding it with another lot. That's all, yeah. Okay.
Is there any topic we can't talk about with you? No, we talked about fashion, politics, diets. What else?
Sex.
Sex, yeah. Oh, there's a very interesting chapter.
Drugs.
I was just
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay, another hour then. Whew.
Sorry, I was just wondering that.
Where are you? Oh.
Turban.
Right. I was just wondering, do you have ever days when you doubt that not enough people are joining, like, let me call it green revolution? And
joining, I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
The kind of green revolution, the new system you kind of want to create or build. And on those days, what do you do? Like, how do you find the strength to still believe what you believe?
I don't get tired of, I'm not defending myself, because I do think, you know, people must be fed up with listening to me sometimes, it's true. But I'm always trying to think, how do I get across to people? So I don't get tired of doing it, of actually working out what I want to say to people. It's very useful to me to do that. I need to do that. I need to understand the world, and I try to find out what's at the bottom of it. And I did that thing in the leaflet, who are our rulers, who does rule the world? And I think I've explained it very simply for you about the banks. And that took a long process before you get to a point of being able to work that out properly. Anyway, but I am sometimes depressed, it's true, by thinking, you know, of how difficult it all is, and I do feel quite despairing. I felt despairing after the last election in England. I mean, that people could be so stupid as to believe the lies of the party that got in. I mean, it was incredible to me that you know, I thought we were waking up. But I want to say that newspapers, the media, does not reflect public opinion. If you talk to people, you find that out very easily, that it's not what people are talking about. The press do not reflect it, but on the other hand, they direct and channel our thinking into very short-term thinking. They try to do that. So
not all of them.
No, there are exceptions, but somehow I do think that those people are just the token rebel in the newspaper sometimes, you know, that they need that, but really they are channeling us always into these short-term thinking about the nearest emergency that we have to deal with because life is so difficult. And I think that's what they do. That's how they get people. Anyway, so all I remember that I'm not the only person doing it. There are thousands of amazing NGOs in the world, and we just have to build it. But it isn't easy. Somebody asked me this morning, what would I do if they asked me, did I want to retire? And I said, if you retire, that means you do what you want to do. I'm doing what I want to do, but it's hard, and if I did retire, I wouldn't be doing this, I'd be doing something else. And I told the journalist what it was, but I'm not telling you. It's difficult, very difficult.
A monk told me once, it's not easy, but it's also not difficult. I try to follow this sentence.
Yeah. No, because I mean, even sitting here, it's really good, it's really sitting here. I don't want to be, you know, whatever it is, slippery or whatever. But I do think that to communicate with people, and I do feel that we're all in support of wanting this change. And so I think that's terribly important. You know, that's probably what makes it easy. I don't know. And let's hope it gets easier. You know, I mentioned this organisation I think I did mention it to you, 350.org with Bill McKibben. I did just mention that. And that name is 350 degrees. It's something to do with when you get to a certain point, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. That is when the landslide happens. That last drop of rain makes a landslide. And so hopefully it might become easy. We might actually achieve it. I don't know.
Eine letzte Frage. Jetzt kommt ihr alle mit einer.
Hello.
Yeah, it's the last question.
Hello. What is sorry.
Don't worry.
What made you so successful all the time in your fashion?
No, I already told you. It is that I want to understand the world I live in, and that is through culture, and so I don't run out of ideas. It's as simple as that, and I have these standards, and I do something original, and yeah, and you'll if you follow your deep interest, and that is a support for the work that I do, you'll always have people interested in it.
So, ganz zum Abschluss lese ich Ihnen noch 3 Zeilen aus dem Buch vor, weil wir über Sex, Drugs und Rock'n'Roll nicht gesprochen haben, aber das fand ich eine ganz schöne Stelle, weil das auch ein bisschen was über Vivienne Westwood sagt. I have to say it in German. Is that okay? Ich bin stolz, exzentrisch zu sein, stolz, das im Zeitalter der Konformität zu sein. Ich bin verletzlich und schüchtern, es sei denn, ich stehe vor Publikum. Es würde mir nichts ausmachen, bis zu meinem Tod keinen Sex mehr zu haben. Ich kann ohne ihn auskommen. Es heißt, Kunst und Kreativität seien die Sublimation sexueller Wünsche und vielleicht befriedigt mich das tatsächlich. Übrigens, es sich selbst zu machen, ist auch sehr befriedigend. Es wäre mir auch egal, wenn ich nie wieder eine Beziehung hätte, weil ich so gern allein bin. Aber Sex finde ich schon toll. Und ich wünschte, Männer würden mich mehr anmachen und ich könnte Männer anmachen. Obwohl ich es kürzlich mal ausprobiert habe. Bei jemandem. Vivienne Westwood, Andreas Kronthaler, vielen Dank.